The Rings of Power has finally ended, season 1 is all wrapped up, and I have to say, I'm extremely disappointed with what we got. We all thought with $1 billion put into it, we'd get top of the line writing, actors, music, CGI, everything would be fantastic, and while some elements have been good, like most of the CGI, and quite a bit of the music, there have been many things that have left us all underwhelmed, and the internet has exploded with their thoughts on the finale. I have a bunch of things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube membership. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So this is a Forbes article. It is written by Eric Kane, and I have referenced quite a few of his Rings of Power articles at this point because he is really against what Hollywood is doing to entertainment and our beloved franchises. So it says, Season 1 Finale Recap and Review, a dreadful mess. Now, obviously, spoiler alert, I am going to be talking about the series as a whole, and I'm so sad that this show was so underwhelming. It says The Rings of Power has wrapped up its first season, and all I can say is shame on everyone who had a hand in this travesty. I've never seen an adaptation of a major work so badly abused, so fundamentally altered, or so disrespectfully handled as the creators of The Rings of Power have treated The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien's creation barely shines through this dreck. Now, when the Hobbit films came out, a lot of people were criticizing them because there was a lot of added material. Obviously, The Hobbit is a shorter novel, and they had to improvise a lot. They did follow, obviously, the major plot points, but they did decide to add a lot to it. But the thing with the Hobbit movies is that it still felt like Tolkien, at least in my opinion. I really don't think that they're bad movies. I quite enjoy them, but they still felt like Tolkien. But this show just doesn't feel that way. It's close in atmosphere, but it's not quite there. It says, I gave this show a chance. I went in with low expectations and for a moment was charmed by what I saw, but quickly the cracks began to show in the story and its heroes. I'll try to parse through everything that went wrong with the whole first season in a future piece, but for now let's look at the travesty that is the season 1 finale. So he starts off talking about strangers and red herrings. Now, I didn't want to believe that they were actually going to make the stranger Gandalf, because of course it doesn't fit with this time period. I was thinking to myself, maybe they'd do some kind of cool story where he was actually one of the blue wizards, because that does fit into the source material, but unfortunately they didn't do that. Of course, they wanted the Gandalf name to be thrown around, so they made him Gandalf. I am extremely disappointed with that decision. They could have went for some really cool storyline. They could have actually just made a new character, I guess, with the stranger. It would have been better than messing with Gandalf. But as soon as that Harfoot song started, and of course Nori used Gandalf's quote, I knew back in episode, I think it was 6, that yes, this is for sure Gandalf. There's no way that it's not. And then the twist with Halbrand being Sauron, again, they were clearly pushing the idea that Halbrand was going to be someone else than just Halbrand. They very clearly were pushing him going to the Southlands and, rebelling basically against Galadriel, which of course was just part of a giant plot. Again, they tried to set it up as this big twist. It really wasn't. In episode 1, everybody made guesses as to who these characters were, and most people guessed that Halbrand was Sauron. I didn't want to believe it, but of course these writers are so bad, they made it blatantly obvious in episode 1. It also talks about Galadriel and Halbrand teleporting all the way from Mordor to Eregion despite Halbrand having a wound that requires elvish healing. They must have ridden awfully hard to get there in just 6 days, and it's like, again, the writers have absolutely no clue what material they're working with because they don't understand how big Middle-earth, Numenor, the oceans are. Okay, Galadriel is swimming across the ocean after jumping off of a boat that was at the edge of the Holy Lands. Of course, she finds Halbrand, and then magically they're in Numenor. And then they have to go to the Southlands from Numenor, and that magically happens in like 3 scenes. And now suddenly they're going from the Southlands to this other place for elvish healing, and it happens in only 6 days as far as we understand. They understand nothing about how big this world actually is, and it is very jarring to watch. And then he talks about Numenor. He says we get many good looks at the Numenorian ship that brings Elendil, Miriel, and one dude who was friends with Isildur back in the previous episode, and I still cannot figure out where they fit everything. Where did the horses go? All the tents and food go? All the people? It's a really small ship. This has been a criticism for me ever since they first showed the boats that were bringing everyone from Numenor to Middle-earth. I know that it's just like a smaller gripe because it's fantasy, don't read that seriously into it. But again, this is a giant series that is going to be harshly critiqued. It made zero sense how they could fit everything onto these, from what it seemed like, tiny ships. There's just a lot of build-up for the next season, and while that's fine to a certain degree, you also don't want to waste this whole season setting up for the next one, which I feel like they did. And then it talks about many long farewells. Yes, there is a lot of goodbye, see you laters, we'll see you soons. It, again, felt very drawn out. That's a running common issue with this series, is just that everything is so drawn out when it doesn't need to be, and the good moments are non-existent. And of course, this season finale is facing massive backlash on social media. The Rotten Tomatoes score hasn't moved very much, but I do think it will drop a little bit more. It's currently sitting at a 38% average audience score, but heading on over to Twitter, a lot of people are dunking on this finale. I was kind of hoping that the Rings of Power season finale would have had Galadriel break the fourth wall and go to Amazon Prime headquarters and tell the writers to fix the story. Of course, people memeing on She-Hulk as well, but it is kind of funny. Someone even pointed this out, that Amazon is recycling their own material and tropes, doing for the Rings of Power exactly what they did for the Wheel of Time. The bad guy conjures a leave your quest test dream sequence / illusion to tempt the good guy into joining the dark side. Seriously, fuck off. And I did actually notice this, but of course, Wheel of Time is another Amazon series that they completely butchered. Somebody said, truly, this is the pinnacle of writing, on par with Tolkien himself, and of course they screenshotted some of the amazing dialogue from this episode. Hope is never mere, not even when it is meager. Patronize me like that again, Captain, and I'll have your ship. How is it that you are here? I'm good. I mean, seriously, this is just a massive freaking joke. Honestly, I'm pretty glad that the Rings of Power is over just so I don't have to watch it every single week. This was massively disappointing. This show doesn't even deserve a season 2 in my opinion. I know they've greenlit it. I know they're starting to film for it. Maybe they'll actually listen to fans and make the next season better, but I highly doubt it. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.